Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Lauren and I am the Yoga and Fitness Program Coordinator at the McFetridge Sports Center. And in today's Transition Tuesday video, I will be going over some more advanced ways that you can move when you're taking a vinyasa or a chaturanga. So I will be going over some chaturanga and vinyasa different modifications and variations that you can take that are a little bit more challenging. If you're looking for more of a challenge than a traditional chaturanga, here are some things that you can incorporate to make your pose a little bit more vigorous if that's what you're looking for. So first and foremost, always remember that when you're moving through something that feels like it's challenging, it should still be fairly comfortable. It should not make you wince, make a face, think ow, or hold your breath. And that's true even when you're taking a vinyasa, even when you're taking a chaturanga, even when you're in the most challenging pose that you can think of, you still should be able to breathe comfortably. You should not be holding your breath, wincing, making a face, or thinking ow. That is so important. So remember that. So all of these variations, like these variations, I don't ever even take them. Not really. I can't remember the last time I took one of these because I can do them. We'll see how well. I haven't done some of them in a while, except for earlier today. But it doesn't mean because you can take them or because you know they exist, that does not mean that that's what you should be doing. So I just had to say that first, then we can get into it. Okay, so the three things that I'm going to show you today is instead of stepping back, jumping back from a chaturanga or into a chaturanga, jump back to chaturanga, taking a chaturanga or a vinyasa with one leg and rolling over the toes. So these are three things that if you've been practicing yoga for a while, you maybe already know them. Again, we've got jumping back, taking a one leg vinyasa, and rolling over the toes. So rolling over the toes doesn't necessarily make the pose more challenging, it's just different. Let's start with that one actually, because it's kind of a funky one. The other two truly take a lot more work, a lot more coordination. But rolling over the toes is just an interesting option if you just want to mix it up. You're feeling like you want to try something new, this is a good one to try. Okay, so this would be, imagine that we've already taken our vinyasa. Can you tell that I'm not really in the mood to do an extra one? So you've taken your vinyasa, you've taken your back bend, whatever that back bend may be, doesn't matter. But I want you to watch my feet. I'm gonna roll over my toes. So whether you stay upright from the cobra or you lower, doesn't matter, but you roll over your toes. So again, I'll move up a little bit. Okay, so you've taken your back bend, and whether you're someone who likes to lower back down and then go into downward facing dog, doesn't matter. I have no problem with students going right from the back bend into downward facing dog, as long as it's mindful and controlled, and you really think about using your core to move through the transition instead of sort of just flopping and flailing up. So you think about using your core, you lift your hips up, watch my toes as I roll over, and now I'm in downward facing dog. So all you really have to think about is focusing on engaging your core, lifting your hips up high, and then allowing the toes to roll over. Think about sort of like there's a string pulling your hips up so that it's a little bit easier to roll over the toes. Imagine that something else is taking a little bit of the weight out of your feet and out of your toes. So it's just an interesting transition that you can take. It feels pretty weird and awkward and strange, and that's okay. But it doesn't make you wince, make a face, think ow, or hold your breath. So that's okay. All right, so really notice that distinction in your body. Okay, so rolling over the toes, that's an option. You can do that. Jumping back. Okay, so jumping back is probably one that you've seen before. So this means that from forward fold. So that would be, the scenario here would be we're in a forward fold. We lift up, inhale halfway, exhale, jump back. So what this looks like, let me talk before I do it. I can't do both at the same time very well because we want to be using the breath, and I want to use my breath as I'm doing it too. So normally in a chaturanga, you could step back into a plank, straight arms, and then lower down. Okay, but if you are choosing to jump back, what is often going to be the safest option in your shoulders, and your shoulder is a very vulnerable joint. I know this from personal experience. I've hurt my shoulder doing a variation of a chaturanga. So know that chaturangas are a space where you've got to really think about your shoulders, because your shoulders can be very vulnerable. So put forth a little effort, put forth the mindful concentration that you need, and then also remember that just because you can do it doesn't mean you have to. So you don't have to jump back just because you can jump back, or just because I told you it's an option doesn't mean you have to take it. Okay, so but when you jump back, you're going to land in a plank. So it's important that you jump back far enough. If your hands are here, you can't jump back to here, right? You've got to jump your feet all the way back, and you land in chaturanga. You don't land with straight arms, because that allows the pressure to just move. When a limb is long, the pressure and the stress of the movement of the body weight moves from one joint to the next very seamlessly. So if you jump with straight arms, you're allowing that shock to make its way all the way up to the shoulder. But if you jump back, put a kink in your arm, think about putting a kink in the hose, the tension stops and it can't make its way to the shoulder. The wrist and the hand and the elbow can take it if you are thoughtful. So we want to kind of take the shoulder taking the brunt of the jump. We want to get rid of that as a possibility. So that's why we jump all the way back and we bend the elbows. So when you land with the elbows bent. And then from jumping back, oftentimes students go right into upward facing dog, but you certainly could then lower down. I don't usually practice upward facing dog. It usually feels like too much of a back bend. I usually feel a little crunchiness in my lower back. It makes me usually make a face and wince, so I don't do it. So I'm not gonna walk you through that, but I would say that most students, when they jump back, they then go right into upward facing dog. That seems to be the most common way to use this transition, so that's most likely how you might use it yourself. Okay, but I'm most likely only going to show you this once. So, because again, my shoulder, I gotta look out for my body just like I want you to look out for yours. So, you know, we do the inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, bend in the knees, plant the hands, shoulder distance. At the bottom of the exhalation, lower, bent elbows, long line, and then I am going to lower down, and then I am going to take a cobra. Okay, so that's jumping back. You jump back all the way, you jump back, hopefully, I hope this is what I look like, but this is the hope, is that from the crown of the head to the heels, you're a straight long line, so your hips aren't hiked up or sagging, you're a straight line, elbows bent, hopefully at a right angle. So we don't want them up too high. We don't want the hands too close or too far. Hopefully the elbows look like a right angle when you jump back. Okay, and it's at the bottom of the exhalation. So again, you would inhale, lift halfway. Okay, I will do it one more time for you. So from forward fold, inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, the bottom of the exhalation is when you jump. So you deeply bend the knees, plant the hands, spread the fingers, exhale. And hopefully we land about here, and then we take whatever movement here. So when you're bending at your elbows, your triceps are going to work very hard. The front of your shoulder is still going to work hard. So I don't want you to think if I jump back with bent elbows, I won't feel anything in my shoulders. No, you will, because your shoulder is still working hard. But you shouldn't feel a twinge, nothing sharp, nothing shooting, nothing painful. Okay, so that's jumping back. Third and final option to spice up your vinyasa, spice up your chaturanga, is a one-leg vinyasa. So, thinking about all of our vinyasas, again, originating from downward facing dog, I like to bring my feet together for this option. Now, what we want to remember through this transition, anytime we're doing a chaturanga, it is mostly with the intention of strengthening the upper body. So yes, you take the back bend and you can take that really nice chest opener and shoulder opener, but that lowering action in that moment when you're lowering, the intention is to strengthen the upper body. So strengthening the upper body will happen more if there's less of your feet on the floor. So less of the feet dumps more of the weight into the upper body. So if you pick up a foot, more weight's going to be in your upper body, but the higher you lift your foot, the more likely it is that your core will no longer be turned on. So it's similar when we're in when we're in tabletop and we lift this foot up. Oftentimes the higher we lift the foot, look at my ribs, the more I'm in a back bend and sort of dropping my ribs and sort of sweeping and arching through my spine, which shows me that my lower back is vulnerable, my abs are not engaged. So when we lift up the foot, whether it's in tabletop or in plank, we need to keep the core tall and long and abs engaged. So all this leads me to say that if you're picking up a foot for a one-leg vinyasa, don't pick it up high. Just let it hover over the ground. It's off the ground, it's already making the pose harder. Just simply being off the ground. It could be a hair, it could be a millimeter off the ground, and it still is gonna do the same job. So if you're in a plank and your foot is here versus here, here you've got bad form and it's no harder. Here you've got good form and it's just as hard. Lifting the foot up higher does not make it harder. It only makes your core want to turn off, which is not worth it. Okay, so all of that was the foot doesn't have to come up high. Let it hover over the ground. Okay, so from downward facing dog, I like to bring my feet together. I like to think of my the placement of my hands and feet sort of like a triangle. A triangle. What I meant to say though was tricycle. So instead of sort of having three and the back one is in center, center up that back foot. Okay, so you lift one foot up off the ground, doesn't have to lift up very high. You shift forward to a plank. Foot doesn't have to lift very high. I like to point the foot so the foot can be low to the ground, but away. My left leg's working hard, arms working hard, and then you lower, and then drop the foot for the back bend, because one leg back bend doesn't make this harder or more challenging in any way. So again, I can show you with the other foot, center the foot, lift it up. Now here we can lift it up high because our hips are so high, but once we shift forward and the hips come low, the foot can't come up high because now my lower back is very vulnerable, abs are not engaged. So low to the ground and then lower, and then you can take your back bend. Okay, so those are the three ways that when you're taking a transition like a vinyasa, you can make them a little more challenging or just a little different. So again, rolling over the toes isn't necessarily more difficult, it's just different and odd and funky and weird and stretches through your feet and your toes, which is a good thing. So maybe try that from your back bend into downward facing dog. So it's at the tail end of the vinyasa. You can try rolling over your toes. You can try jumping back with bent elbows at the bottom of your exhalation, or you can try a one leg vinyasa. Of course, if you try it once on your right, you got to try it once on your left, or you try it twice on your right, do twice on your left. Make sure you balance yourself out. So those were all of them. Yeah, those are the three transitions that we talked about in Transition Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, my name is Lauren James. I am the Yoga and Fitness Program Coordinator at the McFetridge Sports Center, and thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day. Bye.